I want to cut to the chase here. There's trouble in the Daily Wire universe. Let's go to Ben Shapiro, sort of the lead head honcho of the Daily Wire, was at some sort of event taking questions, and he was standing up on a desk to make himself 5 foot tall. I'm not a tall man, Ben Shapiro, but maybe that's a little bit cheap.
Do you think he's wearing the flats too?
He's looking over at
yeah.
He's like DeSantis. He's seen DeSantis try it. If it worked for DeSantis, I think we would see some different boots from Ben Shapiro. But I think he's seeing that it might be more of a liability than it's worth. But anyway, so instead he's just standing upright on something. But here he is addressing a question about the behavior of one of his employees.
Yes, the question was about Candace Owens. I think her behavior during this has been disgraceful. Without a doubt. I think she's been absolutely disgraceful. I think that her faux sophistication on these particular issues.
So just to catch people up, they can't hear it. She works for my company. I think it's been disgraceful, and so I'm going to. We're gonna get into that part. I think this next part is actually true, though. In her faux sophistication, I think also Ben Shapiro has a bit of a faux sophistication. Noah Colwyn and Hassan broke down his history lesson on YouTube. You can check that out. And it's like kindergarten Zionist history. But go ahead.
I'm just saying we might need to get the Dye Workwear Twitter account guy on this Ben Shapiro jacket. Way too tight. You see how much wrinkling's going on in his arm?
Yeah. I think, and a prime objective.
You're tiny, but you got to get the extra long jacket. It seems like, dude, you're really extra small.
Yeah, and I think there was one about the jeans thing too. I don't know. I wear sweatpants pretty much every day.
Yeah, no, I mean I don't wear a jacket either. But I'm just saying.
My faux sophistication on these particular issues has been ridiculous. It's not faux sophistication; it's ridiculous. Everybody can see the moves that she's making and the things that she's saying, and I find them disreputable.
Now, I gotta say, I think she is faux sophisticated, but I think you got to be a little bit more explicit. So let's dig into this. How exactly Candace Owens has been behaving. So first we have our boy Dave Rubin here, and I saw this on Twitter, and this was interesting to me. Candace Owens says, "No government anywhere has a right to commit a genocide ever. There is no justification for a genocide. I can't believe this even needs to be said or is even considered the least. I can't believe this even needs to be said or is even considered the least bit controversial to state." And Dave Rubin, a little bit jumpy here, comes and says, "Well, as I'm sure you know, Candace, the Palestinian population has 5x'd in the last few decades. But thank you for taking a strong stand against Hamas's stated genocide of the Jews, which is in their charter." And now, again, like Candace Owens didn't say anything there, and he included a graph of Palestinian population growth here.
I'm sorry, I don't want to derail us, but I just want to remind people, as we've said time and time again, this kind of like right-wing meme about the population of the Palestinians is super reactionary because okay, so you can look at because one thing, like all the far right parties in Israel are worked up about the fact that Palestinians are having children. Something that they want to see end. Sorry, much like when Germans were worried about the Jewish population, they were saying similar kind of things like, "Oh no, there's too many of them." So sitting here and like this kind of fixation with the numbers of people who are living, that actually has a pretty dark fucking undertone to it. Just saying.
These are the same people who will throw the Planned Parenthood's admittedly eugenic dark history at people supporting women's reproductive health. But this is actually like these active policies. It is, like you said, it is with an earnest eye toward birth rates with regards to populations. They hate that under the conditions in Gaza, for instance, people are still having children. And they also massively, they have a very generous, which I don't in a vacuum disagree with policies towards like in vitro fertilization and that sort of stuff. I think that stuff should be paid for by the government, be like for freezing eggs and that stuff. I think in this context where you're suppressing the population of another group of people that you're trying to dispossess, you know, I think that the connection is clear. So yeah, I think that's worth.
I'm sorry, I just want to be very clear about that, because they keep trotting that out as if that's like a kind of get out of jail free card. It's like,
it's a confession.
Yeah, it's a confession that you have racial anxieties right now, friend.
Exactly.
You're thinking about that regularly. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So Candace says, what's amazing about this is I did not name any country in this tweet. I simply stated that genocide is wrong always. This is not controversial stance. Interesting how you interpret it. Now, Candace is being coy here, right? The genocide in the offing is the bombing of the Palestinians right now. And that's what she is referring to, of course, and we'll get to that later. But yeah, the state of Palestinian population rising.
I like this kind of this is like the Idiot Adventures right here.
Exactly. And also I would just say, like, you know, population, South Africans, black South Africans having children was also something that white South Africans didn't like at the exact same time. Like, okay. And then, so she said that, and he said, yes, I thanked you for your strong stance against Hamas. I salute you. Candace Owens says, genocide is always bad. Dave Rubin, why won't you condemn Hamas? Absolutely demented. And Candace Owens is right. That is demented. Candace Owens continues. In short, if the blanket statement, this was, by the way, a couple of weeks ago. In short, if the blanket statement that genocide is wrong upsets you in any way, you need to check yourself. I said exactly what I meant, and I won't be backing down or apologizing or further clarifying this statement. Now, look, again, I think Candace is being a little bit cagey there. I think she could say, hey, stop bombing Palestinians, and, you know, maybe get into that stuff. But she wasn't quite there yet. Now, she has continued, though, and said some more things. Here is a TikTok that I saw this morning of Candace Owens. And this is not me speeding this up, by the way. This is the folks at TikTok also have discovered the miracle of variable rate playback and how it can save time. So so enjoy this sped up Candace Owens clip with us. That is, I think, part of the reason that Ben Shapiro is upset.
I really do believe that leading up to this moment, way before October 7th, pro-Israel was already losing the crowd. And what I mean by that was there was a fatigue that has been setting in culturally in the West with claims of anti-Semitism. And that's why I wanted to talk to Ami Kozak about that. I actually pointed to him and I said, what about this statement is actually anti-Semitic? And he said, it's not. And yet people are facing sneers and facing libels. People's jobs are being called. If they simply ask a question, if they ask a question about Israel's response, if they say, you know what, how many Palestinians being killed in response is too many Palestinians? They say, how dare you ask that question? You're anti-Semitic for even asking. They say, what if this leads to World War III? It doesn't matter if it leads to World War III. What matters now is that even suggesting or thinking ahead is wrong and you're anti-Semitic. I felt this fatigue long before this. I've been saying that the pro-Israel lobby was hurting the pro-Israel cause. And I think that we virtually saw a collapse overnight because something horrific did happen. People acknowledged that it was horrific. And I think that a lot of Jewish people looked around and said, where are our allies? And a lot of your allies were falsely accused of being anti-Semitic. I had a rabbi that threatened to buy out an entire page in a newspaper and call me an anti-Semite. And so I think that the support for Israel has happened very slowly. The drop in support for Israel, rather, has happened very slowly, and now it's happening very quickly. I think I noticed it really starting to rev up, the pro-Israel lobby calling people anti-Semitic over, I would say, the last 4 years. And then we reached kind of a point of ridiculousness last year when people like Jamie Foxx were being called anti-Semitic for stating what happened in the Bible. It's just completely ridiculous. I've been wrongly smeared and libeled as anti-Semitic too many times. And so I think what you hear is people that no longer want to engage in the conversation. It's a perfect demonstration of exactly what I'm talking about. Yesterday, as I said, we had that really great conversation between me and Ami where we talked about our experiences. And I spoke to him about how one thing that I was confused about was when I went to Jerusalem myself and I saw this anger and this angst between the Jews and the Muslims. And I was shown that these are the Muslim quarters. And we were talking about whether or not they are required to live there or whether or not they choose to live there. Very confusing if you're somebody who's, walking through this, and how it didn't give me the sense of freedom and collaboration between these people. And the pro-Israel lobby excerpted that clip and is now calling me stupid for asking the question. That is, again, just simply not how you win friends and influence people. I hope that maybe helps you look at a bigger picture and a bigger snapshot of understanding how the radically pro-Israel lobby has been treating people over the last, I would say, 5 years.
Now, David, I'll let you respond to that before I go.
I mean, I probably don't have much more to add than what you had planned here, but I think it's pretty rich coming from her. I think we'll probably get to that in a second. I will say, interesting little turn from her, because I will say I get all of my news on the newsman from the number one newsman, Aaron Brown, and every time I see Candace Owens, it's always just her getting worked up about a Disney movie or some like kind of pop culture thing. So very interesting that she's sort of decided here is the moment that she's going to take a stand. I gotta say, it's very good to speak out against the genocide passively, I guess, in the way that she has.
Mhm.
Um, but I do have to say that it is interesting that it is sort of in connection to some of the weirder kind of Kanye West style things, or the Jamie Foxx thing, by the way, too. I have to be frank about that as well.
Yeah, just to catch people up, Jamie Foxx said that they killed Jesus, and think of what they'll do to you. And I think people assumed he was talking about Jewish people generally. I think Jamie Foxx has said, no, I'm just talking about generally people in my life. I don't know.
Or the friend who
specifically about-
betrayed me, right?
Right, exactly. Like I frankly is one that like I think you probably should clarify, Jamie, because it risks being
I think that's
interpreted
very fair. Yeah.
incorrectly. And yeah, like I think this Jerusalem thing, I don't know when she was in Jerusalem thing. She said she's trying to copy Ta-Nehisi Coates, I think, in that a little bit. But I just want to play another one here. This is just a little bit more, and this gets to your point about like what else she's bringing in here. Actually, no. Before we get in here, look, this is a bit of YouTube bit, so I want to include some actual education in here for folks. I want historian Avi Shlaim, who was born in Baghdad, moved as a young child into Israel, and is one of the best now anti-Zionist, or at least post-Zionist historians out there. He's a supporter of one democratic state from the river to the sea. Here the way he describes for folks who a lot of people in this audience know it, but since we're doing it for YouTube bait, catch people up on the difference between what is anti-Semitic and what is anti-Zionist. The former is despicable, the latter is righteous. And here is Shlaim on that.
Anti-Semitism is the hatred of Jews because they are Jews. Anti-Zionism is opposition either to the Zionist ideology, the official ideology of the State of Israel, or more commonly, it's criticism of specific policies of the Israeli government, particularly policies towards the Palestinians, policies of the occupation. Anti-Semitism is a very ugly thing and can never be justified. Anti-Zionism, most of the criticisms, most of the anti-Zionist statements that I've come across are reasonable, evidence-based, and legitimate. But the problem is that Israel and its friends, and its very powerful friends around the world, deliberately conflate the two so as to pretend to claim that any criticism of the State of Israel and its policies is anti-Semitic. And the last example of that I've already given at the beginning of my talk, which is the Secretary General of the United Nations, who made a very humane statement about the need to ceasefire and protect civilians. And the Israeli representative immediately accuses him of anti-Semitism and of blood libel. So this is a very clear illustration of the strategies of Israel and its friends around the world. Israel is very troubled by BDS. BDS is a global grassroots non-violent movement. Non-violent. And its main objectives are enshrined in international law. The right of return of the 1948 refugees, an end of occupation, and equal rights to the Palestinian citizens of the State of Israel. And yet, the Israeli global campaign against BDS focuses or pivots on the claim that BDS is anti-Semitic. But it isn't. How could it be anti-Semitic? This campaign to demonize, this campaign to silence critics of Israel has been very successful in Germany, where it's illegal, it's an offense to support BDS, and it's been extremely successful in this country. And the British government has adopted the IHRA definition, which is a non-definition. It's completely vacuous. It says that anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews, but it doesn't say what this perception is. It's completely vacuous. It's a non-definition. But then there is a series of 11 examples of what may constitute anti-Semitism. And 7 of these 11 examples relate to the state of Israel. So it's anti-Semitic under the IHRA definition to say that the state of Israel is a racist project. But as we all here agree, the state of Israel is a racist project, and hundreds of Israelis say that openly, and they don't encounter any opposition.
So yeah, and I think that is an important context, because Candace Owens, despite the turn that she's making, is not making it with this understanding. She still doesn't get this at all. With just as evidence, here is her continuing to talk about this topic and what really upsets her about it.
America, and we could look back on my past commentary, because I have predicted this was going to happen. I have predicted that pro-Israel causes were going to legitimately lose support over the years. My predictions began, of course, when it first happened to me. Now, in America, we kind of had this idea, and it wasn't exactly wrong, that Richard Spencer was an anti-Semite. That's where we began in the discussion about what is and what is not anti-Semitism. We also had people saying that Nick Fuentes was an anti-Semite. This was agreed with across the board. He was banned from virtually every platform because he was discussing Holocaust numbers, and there are clips of him that have circulated essentially saying that he doesn't believe that the amount of Jews that died in the Holocaust is actually factual, right? But then something started to change, and people that were explicitly pro-Israel started being accused of being anti-Semitic. I mean, I could just give you my own circumstance, obviously. Notoriously, the clip that circulated of me talking about Adolf Hitler, about whether or not he is properly considered to be a nationalist. I don't believe he is. I don't believe he ever was a nationalist, because he had ideas to expand outside of Germany, was then used, doctored, and used to suggest that I was an anti-Semite, despite the fact that I had been working for Turning Point.
Candace, that shit wasn't doctored, darling. That was you saying, you not knowing what nationalism means, to put it charitably, to say like there can be some expansionist sort of aims. Like this isn't contradictory to nationalism. She wants to define nationalism as like small government, just defensive libertarianism or some shit. Like, and Hitler wasn't that. You know, you were talking shit, and you know. And I also just say, like, had nothing to do with the state of Israel. Just like these other things that happened to her that make her start to lose her patience with this. These things that Candace Owens lost patience with Israel because people got upset that she talked about Hitler. And let's go to some of the other reasons.
A remarkably pro-Israel student organization that was marching across college campuses, expand outside of Germany, was then used, doctored, and used to suggest that I was an anti-Semite, despite the fact that I had been working for Turning Point USA at the time, a remarkably pro-Israel student organization that was marching across college campuses, was hosting Jewish events, pro-Israel events, obviously.
Not the same thing, Candace.
Later, but also sending 300 kids a year to Israel. And at that time, I had just come back from Jerusalem to watch the embassy be minted during Trump's administration. So it's very bizarre. And after going through it and seeing that people that I had defended for years were so quick to say, you are not allowed to even talk about nationalism and Adolf Hitler, somehow that could be construed as anti-Semitism, and none of the voices that I had given my voice to were defending me, didn't feel good. Didn't like it at all. You know, does it make you quick to want to defend people?
This is a broadcaster who thinks her support for Israel gives her a free pass to talk about Hitler.
Yeah,
I mean, like she's very lost here. And yeah, I'll just play a little bit more here.
Return the favor when the time comes. And we've seen this phenomenon, I've covered it on this show, hoax after hoax of individuals that are being accused of anti-Semitism who have not explicitly said anything against Jewish people. I think one of the biggest circumstances arrived just a few months ago with Kyrie Irving. Remember Kyrie Irving, the basketball player? He is tremendously popular. He is known to be a very good person. And he shared a documentary link. And
yeah, and the thing is,
could you remind people what that documentary?
Yeah.
Yes,
the documentary was a Black Israelite documentary called Hebrews to Negroes, and just by Candace Owens' own standards, there, She said Nick Fuentes, who questioned the amount of Jews killed in the Holocaust, that's present in the Hebrews to Negroes. So not really the best example, and also not, again, without getting into Black Israelites, nothing to do with actual Israel. And also, like, the what she's not mentioning here is the Kanye thing as well, which is Kanye, because his therapist, which, like, I have nothing to say about therapists to the stars. I think they probably are a lot of scammers, but I'm not going to say that because of their Judaism, if they happen to be Jewish.
Yes,
and that's
sir.
what Kanye did. And there is this very funny response that I found from Candace Owens at that time, where she says this, and
so I think it's important for me to state the obvious. I, of course, am not anti-Semitic whatsoever. I've never had an anti-Semitic bone in my body. I actually, before I married my husband, almost married a Jewish man. It's not even a thing. I feel stupid even saying that. But I do think it's important to do that, because I've made it abundantly clear publicly that I'm standing by Ye as he weathers this tremendous storm. But I also recognize that I need to make it abundantly clear that I'm standing by Dennis Prager as well, and all of my other Jewish friends and supporters who are speaking out for me.
Yeah, so not for, like,
what a mess. What a mess. What a fucking mess. I'm just saying, it's such a mess. And I know we probably have some more stuff going on, but, like, to sit here and I don't know, as somebody who has been a pretty prominent, supporter of Palestinian rights, like, all my adult life, to sit here and support the things that she supported all of her life, and I think we'll get into more of that as we go on. And great, she's, like, calling for the end to the genocide. Like, you know what? Like, fine, that's helpful on a certain level. But yeah, you know what, friend?
Exactly.
It does not work when you're sort of couching it in, like, oh yeah, Kyrie Irving was unjustly attacked, or Jamie Foxx saying the Jews killed Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, she is literally falling into the kind of things that they accuse Jeremy Corbyn, Bernie Sanders, all sorts of people of doing. Anyone who says anything about Palestinian human dignity and human rights, of being anti-Semitic. And for some reason, she feels the need to defend, like, actual examples of anti-Semitism all the way through. I don't have a lot of sympathy for that, friend. I'm sorry.
She's not cynically collapsing the distinction between Zionists and Jewish people. There's no, in her mind, that's why she's like, why didn't they defend me? I'm pro-Israel. Why didn't they defend me with the Hitler or the Jamie Foxx or the Kyrie Irving thing? And the truth is, like, she mentioned it, like, Dennis Prager called her up, and she's like, I'm not doing this again with you people. Actually, I should see if I can find this. Candace Owens breaking my silence.
Because this is, as you're finding, I'm just saying, like, this is exactly, I think, what we're trying to get at is, like, while the entire pro-Palestine movement has, from the get-go, and correctfully and rightfully, has made the very clear distinction between Judaism, Jewish people, and Zionism, right?
Yes.
It's like, it's 101. It's like the first thing you need to learn, because there are little freaks out there, little nasty people who need to be defeated and marginalized and pushed out of the public sphere, who are anti-Semitic, and do try to use that conflation. And it's disgusting and it's wrong, and we'll call it out here. And the rest of the left will, and the rest of the pro-Palestinian movement will, as they have from the very get-go. And what Candace Owens is sort of falling into is, like, literally not just saying the kind of things that she's saying that, we might disagree with, but, like, actively actually conflating Israel with Jewish people, which is a nasty thing to do, frankly.
Yeah, exactly. And so, again, like, none of this, again, like, the distinction she's make when Kanye says, like, my Jewish doctor, as in, like, a cabal, that has nothing to do with Israel. It just doesn't. And so she said,
zero.
I've said this publicly before. This is from the piece here that is sort of from that thing I just played. But I said this publicly before, and I said again, the most productive working relationship I've ever had in my entire conservative career is with Dennis Prager. And Dennis Prager, when I called him, he wanted to discuss the situation with Ye. And I didn't let him get a word in. I just yelled at him. Honestly, I was very harsh. I said to him, I'm not playing the game with the Jewish community anymore. But if people were saying, and Prager basically like defended her at that point, and Candace was like, "Thank you for that." And that was how that whole situation, I guess, wrapped up. Is they gave her a break, and yeah. The other thing is I want to play the very beginning of this.
I'm
like,
sorry. I'm just saying,
yeah,
I just wanted to, sorry, not to pause. Maybe whatever. Thank you for putting this segment together, Matt, because like I think there is a lot of confusion of people being like, "You gotta hand it."
Yes, no.
I will say, it's very like funny in like a kind of cynical way to watch like the Daily Wire like cannibalize themselves over this, and I think any kind of challenge against people who are supporting the mass slaughter of children, it's helpful to at least have people exposed to it. Bad person to be fucking doing it, frankly.
Right. Well, and that's the thing is like, okay, she mentions like how many Palestinians have to die. It's like, even still, I have some issues with that. I'd say like, how about we don't kill civilians in retaliation for, attacks on civilians or for that matter, like, right. Just, but fine. But then I get less interested when we get into the isolationist thing, which is also where she's going to be way more comfortable. It's like, what if you're a guy who doesn't want their tax money going to do this? It's like, that's not really my fucking obligation or my problem here. But if you just want to remind people at the beginning of this section here, I think this is when she says, look at my record.
America, and we could look back on my past commentary because I have predicted this was going to happen. I have predicted that pro-Israel causes were going to legitimately lose support over the years. My predictions began, of course, when it first happened to me. Now,
okay, that's not so she also said the 4 years ago thing in the other clip. And that's just, I actually have something from 4 years ago that people might be interested in looking at. This is a tweet here by our girl Candace. And I actually remembered this one, but I was having a tough time finding it because she misspells anti-Semitic. Why we should all be discussing AOC, Jeremy Corbyn, Ilhan, and the rise of anti-Semitism and racism on the left. And that was February 18th, 2019. And let's just look at what Candace was doing. It wouldn't be exactly what she's saying everybody is doing to her, isn't it?
Hello, hello, hello. Good morning from Los Angeles. Some pretty crazy stuff is going on right now, and I think that we need to discuss it. I actually had tried to flag this for everybody. I think it was 2 weeks ago, maybe 1 week ago, when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez locked arms, figuratively speaking, had a public love fest with Jeremy Corbyn. And I started freaking out. I'm like, guys, this is not okay. Jeremy Corbyn is an on-record, open anti-Semitic leader in the UK. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is talking about the fact that they had a wide-reaching conversation and that she was looking forward to working with him. And I tweeted about it because I'm seeing this trend of open anti-Semitism and open racism that is coming from the left. So people in America who follow me need to pay attention to what just happened today in the UK. Jeremy Corbyn is pretty much what happens if Ilhan Omar and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez became one person. Openly racist, open anti-Semitic. He's leading.
Again, like...
It's like, I'm sorry, like it's really disgusting what you say. It's just so fucking awesome. It's so stupid.
When Candace Owens, who, look, she might deny this all she wants, she exists to downplay racism to conservative audiences. That's her.
Like, yes.
Number. I mean, she offers a bunch of things. I kind of think
great commentary on Snow White.
Yeah, I think her expertise on nationalism and Hitler probably is not really why she's prized. I think it's more because she says racism is something created by Democratic campaigns to get your vote. So to hear her just to call somebody a racist, a little alarm bell should be ringing. Like, this is not usually a category that animates this person.
much what happens if Ilhan Omar and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez became one person. Openly racist, open anti-Semitic, but he's leading the Labour Party. The Labour Party, for those of you that don't know, is the equivalent to the Democrats over in the UK. So the Labour Party, Jeremy Corbyn is leading it. Today, 7 people from his own party resigned because they can no longer accept that their party has become so anti-Semitic and so racist. And this is huge. So people on the left in America, the Democrats, have just openly embraced an anti-Semite, somebody that is so anti-Semitic and so racist that 7 members of his own party.
It's not like the most important thing in the world. And I'm not trying to sit here and run interference for the Democratic Party. Far from it. The fucking Democratic Party hated Jeremy Corbyn from the get-go. And
the Labour Party,
yeah. No. It's like the Democratic Party.
Oh,
in the
right,
United States. You think fucking Nancy Pelosi was like, hey, let's see, let's go, Jeremy. Let's beat, the fucking far right in England. No, they wanted him out there too because they share the same politics as the same guys who are in power now under Starmer. And they did not want a kind of pro-working class Labour Party by any sense of the imagination. Sorry, small point, but just like, let's be very clear about this too, is that AOC and Ilhan and Bernie and all these people who were supportive of Jeremy Corbyn were outliers because the vast majority of the Democratic Party was joining in on the pylons of attacks against him. A good fucking man, one of the best people in the world, by the way. Just saying.
Corbyn is, he's
10 times better than Bernie, I will say, and I would say I said that back in the day too, and now I actually mean it as a dig against Bernie, frankly.
Yeah, but there's a little bit actually interesting. Some of the notes pick up on here.
Okay, that would be the equivalent of if Cory Booker, Nancy Pelosi, some people that have been in the Democrat Party for 50 years even, because I think one of the members had actually been a member of the party for decades, decided to resign because they no longer understood the radicalization of their own party. This is exactly what is happening in America right now. We talk about Ilhan Omar, who is just openly anti-Semitic, and I will give kudos where kudos is due to Nancy Pelosi for demanding that she issue an apology, but her apology was half-hearted, and she's still a member of the party. She's still a member of Congress, which to me is unacceptable. When people are openly expressing hate, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez openly expressed hostility towards Israel in that interview that we all saw where she said that they were occupying Palestine, and then weeks later she has a conversation with Jeremy Corbyn, and this is
so. I mean, the way even she says occupy. This is a person who doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about, because it is not actually factually controversial if there's an occupation, right? Like it's just
even a lot of the pro-Zionist liberals who like to be squishy on this are like, oh, we're against the
occupation. Exactly. Also giving credit to Nancy Pelosi, which I think is also just a nice thing. When they align, it's like when Charlie Kirk or Tim Pool will give credit to Joe Manchin for being statesman. I love that. That is Candace Owens. Actually, I do have one final clip of Candace Owens, but first, actually, I just want to share this. This is from Verso, how the EHRC got it so wrong, anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. This is by Jewish Voice for Labor. This is a free book. All you need to do is give Verso your email address and you can get the ebook for free. I recommend anybody look into that if they are actually interested in labor and anti-Semitism. And the degree, as Candace Owens is learning, that category, anti-Semitism, is being cynically utilized by the nation of Israel to silence criticism of its policies, including bombing Palestinians and taking their land. But just one good clip, because like this is the type of clip that might get passed around and people have to be like, oh, you got to hand it to her, right? So I do just want to say, like, this is what I was saying about why it's important that like Jewish Voices for Peace, for instance, is out there, because they basically are scuttling an entire arm of Israeli propaganda, which is that we stand for all Jewish people and Jewish people are scared and we're protecting them all. And so here's Candace as she discusses Jewish Voices for Peace.
And why try to understand what I was saying as a Black conservative when you could just smear me, you could libel me? So as I said, they are now saying that Jewish people are anti-Semitic. And this is a stunning clip out of D.C. yesterday. It was very difficult for me to comprehend it when I was looking at it. But it is a protest that took place at the Capitol. Take a look. You might be noticing that a lot of these protesters are wearing yarmulkes. The shirts that they're wearing read, "Jews say ceasefire now."
Yeah, I mean, most of it was the shirts, I think. The yarmulkes were like less apparent. But this is why Ben Shapiro he's right to say she doesn't know what the fuck she's talking about. She's completely clueless, and also she's in a bad ideological environment, so this is going to go sour probably. But Ben Shapiro can't address that. He can't address Jewish Voice for Peace in any kind of real way, so that's why he didn't, and that's why he has to just say, it's disgraceful. I think what she's doing is disgraceful, because he can't actually get into it. And I'll just play a little bit more of this, and then we can be done with Candace.
Okay. So Jews calling for a ceasefire, not how it was read on Twitter. We were told that these Jews were anti-Semitic, which is very, again, difficult for me to comprehend. I can tell you the group behind it is Jewish Voice for Peace. It was founded in 1996 by Tony Kushner and Noam Chomsky. Yes, the Noam whose parents were Ashkenazi Jews that escaped Russia and arrived here in America. Hard to imagine that he is now a raging anti-Semite. But his group is similar to other Zionist organizations like J Street and AIPAC. JVP is essentially a national...
So she doesn't know what she's talking about. It's actually opposed to J Street and AIPAC. But anyway, that's Candace Owens. She's on the anti-Semitism odyssey. She's learning things, not really very well. But I will say her at least saying that it's okay to call for peace is good. And, I don't know, it's a dicey thing, this sort of support. And I guess
it's extremely dicey. And
late coming solidarity.
Luckily, we don't have to rely on her. I think the only thing that she's providing is a very clear encapsulation of how insane people like Dave Rubin and Ben Shapiro and the rest of them are, that somebody's saying, hey, no genocide, please.
Right. And, do you have that 7 labor lawmakers resign thing? Because that's another point.
Yes, I do.
And it's probably too late to clip that into the thing. But we just wanted to note is like those lawmakers said the problem is that he's anti-Semitic and also not moderate enough on like Brexit, I think. And
yeah, that's what it was. So again, just to be very clear, they're mad at Jeremy Corbyn for standing for human rights for Palestinians, and they were also mad that Jeremy Corbyn was saying, "Hey, we had an election on something. I'm not going to overturn the results of the election."
Right.
Right.
And what we're saying is, like, if you sincerely thought he was an anti-Semite, you wouldn't need to say, also, we disagree with him about that trade policy thing. Like, if I'm in a group with someone, I'm not going to be like, they're a racist. Also, I wish they were more generous on the earned income tax credit.